Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back, folks. It is Thursday, November 7th. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, grannies and gators, patriots, fans, family, prisoners, and hostages, too. We are going to have a jam-packed discussion today. Now that some of the dust is starting to settle, some of the hangovers are starting to abate, people have had some sleep and some rest and kind of letting the dust settle out on what has been not just a crazy week, but I think is going to be just the beginning of a crazy time for both of our countries. We have a lot of followers and people in our community, friends and family that are on both sides, U.S. and Canada and abroad. We have an interesting community for sure that spans continents and time zones and cultures and identities and even languages. I think well, that wasn't what I was going to share. It jumped on me. Sorry about that, Nana Sue. Thank you. Yes, I have managed to get some sleep, get kind of caught up on a bunch of stuff, and get a show put together. A couple of announcements to start off with. I just love this thumbnail for tonight's show with the little Trudeau kind of sitting on Trump's lap, right? I kind of thought it kind of made me giggle when I was putting that together today. But we're going to talk about what happens in Canada if Trump does in fact actually drain the swamp or even part of it. What does that mean for Canada? We have a very unique outlook on this, the grand scheme of things, compared to folks that don't catch northern Canadian news or only following the pundits and the truth tellers down south. They may not understand how deep that swamp is entrenched in Canada. And you guys have heard me say it here a bunch of times, over the years, that Canada has kind of been cottage country for the swamp zombies and oligarchs in the US. It's their playground. Canada is their playground, their testing zone where they get to go and do things that they wouldn't dare try in their backyard. All things diabolical that they happen here, but that's part of the knock-on effects, the ripple effects, the the what do you call them, the waves, right? That happen. There's going to be an impact. And also, one more quick little announcement tomorrow night, guys. I don't usually have a show prepped in advance, but tomorrow we've got Jim Ferguson from Freedom Train International and Nicola Charles, a Freedom Train International ambassador, and joining yours truly, also a Freedom Train ambassador. And we're going to be talking about this impact globally that is kind of really setting the world on fire. Things are happening really, really quick. Rick and Linda, I wasn't saying that the U.S. was any less swampy. I was not saying that Canada is more swampy, but I will say by population, Canada is probably more swampy because all of your swamp rats down in the or swamp zombies in the U.S. have all got their junk going on up here in Canada, and we have like 10% of the population. So they probably own the vast majority of Canada just because it's like them going to I don't know, mini golf or something like that. So yeah, it's definitely been an interesting couple of days so far since Trump won. We're going to talk about some of that. We're going to start off as always though, guys, with reminding everybody, make sure you get plugged in on Substack. It's been up to this point the other than even even the stuff I've built has had issues, but Substack has been reliable so far. So make sure you get plugged in over there. I've just added it down here below. It's in the links on almost all of the show notes on all of the platforms. And we have a full slate of platforms tonight, guys. So Substack is the place to get things I can't deliver on the social media platforms. I can put all of the graphics, all of the links, documents, all of the different types of media that I can't give you guys in a video, and it is impossible to try and keep up. So, and here's why I'm doing this. Some people will try while they're in the middle of the show, and I tried this too, to try and put links in all of the platforms for everything that I was talking about, and it's an exercise in driving myself insane. So Substack is the place to go. You can get links to our precious metals financial whisperer guys. Just you hear from him every Friday with Bankers Bandit Bullion and Bucks with Bryce. It's a great time to get plugged in, and this is how you do it. And one of my partners that I don't talk about nearly often enough, because it's really not my thing, right? But I'm a firm believer in putting my wallet where my mouth is, and I understand that that when we gave up our manufacturing, we gave up our power and independence as nations. Only nations that produce stuff have the ability to profit, right? So as we've outsourced everything and almost nothing is made in Canada and very little is made in the USA, it became very difficult for me to find partners that carried my same values. And this one does. Patriot Switch. Because I don't spend a lot of time with talking about these guys, they don't pay me to do this. That's not how it works. This is a community that co-op shops, and I've found the things that I can't live without anymore. And I found them from a family-owned manufacturer with comparable prices, actually mountains cheaper prices, just what I save alone. This is my Gatorade replacement, my electrolytes. And over the last few months, everybody have seen me feeling better, more energy, more on the ball, more consistent, never, falling apart, all of those things. It's these things that allow me to do that. I'm not spending $2 or $3 or $4 or $5 for a bottle of Gatorade. I'm spending $8 and I'm getting 20 Gatorades, and I like it way better. You guys always see my drink. This is my favorite. It tastes like Christmas oranges. So for me, before, I didn't drink anything but coffee. That was it, morning to night, nothing but coffee. Never drink water, anything else like that. They 100% deliver to my door within 3 days, and there's no GST. There's a service tax, one small tax that's included in the shipping. And if I order enough, it doesn't even cost me anything for shipping. So I love it for a whole bunch of different reasons. So I just wanted to talk about the things that keep me healthy and keep me going 18 hours a day. This is a big one. Sustain my Christmas orange in a glass. This is the other one because I really hate to cook for myself. So this is my protein replacement shakes, my energy shakes. Instead of buying, any of those kinds of drinks. I got them right here, and they taste better. That one to me tastes like, strawberry quick. But if you buy the strawberry, any of the stuff in the stores, there's some products in there that'll actually is actually toxic, seriously toxic enough to put you in a hospital, right? So this is some of the big reasons why I shop for these products. Other ones, this is my humidifier, vaporizer, Sharpen, all the goodies in there. This one here keeps me from being sore, and it's cheaper. Everything I buy is cheaper, and it doesn't give any money to BlackRock. That's the biggest thing for me. There's a guy out there, Ian Carroll. He goes up and down all of the store aisles talking about how BlackRock owns this and BlackRock owns that. No GST, Miss Kitty. I see that. No GST. See your question. Sorry. Nope. No GST. So there's a basic sales tax, a couple of bucks. I spend about $135 a month from there, and get my stuff that I need every day, every week, and I can find all of that on whatsupcanada.org. Yes, guys, the website is back up and running. Um, Vic, that's kind of that's how I do. I need to. I eat well when I do eat. I just don't have the time to eat, and it's hard to cook for one person at a time. Particularly in my situation that I live in my bunker, hiding out from. Um, Yeah, the ones wrapped in the green tissue. Yes, that's why I love this. So I have gotten so much better at staying rehydrated and getting my electrolytes. And that's literally what does it for me. I'm 56 years old now. I don't take painkillers. I don't have any medications. I'm not on anything. I don't live in pain. I get all of my vitamins and supplements from these guys, and it's all made in America. So that's can all be found on my website. Links are all up here on top to my partners. I don't have sponsors and I don't have advertisers. I have partners. We work together. They help me help other people, and this is a huge way to do it. Is all kinds of it's a massive thing, but it was that company, Patriot Switch, the founder of that Barack Obama named the eighth most dangerous conservative in America. And you guys probably wouldn't know his name, but they named him the eighth most dangerous conservative in America because he refused to buy into globalism and the new world order and send all of the manufacturing and shipping to China. He refused. So, yeah, a lot of effort and money goes out to into trying to silence us, but kind of exactly like all the rest of the things. This is a huge parable thing. Everybody thinks Canada's getting a whole bunch of Taylor Swifts because all of the celebrities can't stand Trump and they're all leaving Canada. Well, the Democrats didn't lose because they didn't have all the celebrities. They lost because they didn't have any of the real people, right? And that is why this company that I work with and partnered with succeeds, regardless of all of it, because we work with and for the people. So, and now I don't usually spend anywhere near that time talking about the stuff that I do. I am the lousiest one on earth for that. I don't run commercials, um, and but that's those are the people that I believe in, that work with, and they have something in there for anybody. Anybody that has any questions? Oh yeah, that's what I was going to show you on that page there, just in case anybody is curious. First, if you're curious about looking into it, go to What's Up Canada, hit Set Me Free. It'll take you to this page. It looks like this, and you can fill in just these blanks. That's it. Couple of blanks. Well, that's all. Prove you're not a robot, and somebody on my team will contact you. And they're most likely going to be a little old lady that's figured out how to do this and to help others learn how to do something different. That's really all it boils down to, is learning how to do something a little bit different. So there, took care of business. Now, what does Trump's win mean for Canada? Hope everybody has hit the thumbs up, because we're going to get into the ride on that. So smash that thumbs up. Make sure you've got a subscribe and a like and a share going on there. And we're going to get into it. So these guys do know each other, and they've had kind of a rocky relationship over the years, I think is safe to say. And this is kind of a no-brainer, but I think it's imperative to add this into here right now, because the point that it makes will mean add up to a little bit more a little bit further into the show here. But the PM Trudeau revives the Canada-US Relations Cabinet Committee after Trump wins. There was a lot of people talking about the Trudeau and the Liberal organized crime syndicate here in Canada, and the panic that they were going to be getting into with this. I think that is absolute confirmation by seeing that headline alone, that we heard Trudeau and Freeland and Singh, interestingly enough, taking three different directions to congratulating President Trump. All of them hollow, empty, and full of crap. And people are seeing through it. They're done with it. And this is a great way to describe it. A little clip from Elon here. I like these short little clips. Again, whatever I share is not an endorsement of the individual, but they're here on this show because there is a message in what they have to say. So let's listen to this little clip from Elon about what he thinks about people.
How do you feel about that? Yeah, no, I'm asking you personally how you feel about that, because this goes, we're talking about power and influence, and
I'm saying what I care about is the reality of goodness, not the perception of it. And
Bingo.
what I see all over the place is people who care about looking good while doing evil. Fuck them.
And that's it. That's the message. You see people everywhere more concerned with the perception of looking like they're good, doing good, while they're doing evil. That is the satanic trance that we all seem to be captivated by, and why I think it's so funny that with these hypocritical celebrities that are threatening to leave Canada, or to leave the US, and if any of them wants to come to Canada, they can go pound sand. You caught what Elon's last words were there, with a giant F off. I couldn't help but agree in 100% with his statement. Canada's full. Don't need any. We're gonna talk a little bit about that a little bit further into the show here. But I caught this morning, and I knew that I was going to be playing this for everybody tonight, because Tulsi Gabbard is one of those individuals that I cannot yet put a finger on how exactly I think about her. She started as a Democrat in Hawaii, served her country with distinction. She's brilliant. She's smart. And she, has changed. And now I expect to see her in the Trump Untouchables dream team coming up in the near future. And when we talk about these things, guys, I know that this is all theater. I know in Canada it's all just a joke, but these are the things and the thing that take our days to get through and survive through and live through. But she has some very concise things to say about our prime minister up here in Canada that I really thought everybody should hear. I don't think Trudeau's pretty hair and fancy socks are going to let Lord Farquaad skate.
Basically, what they're telling us is you are an enemy of the state if you dare to oppose or even question the president, his administration, or his policies. Shut up, step back, fall in line, or we're coming after you.
Yep. Sounds like Trudeau.
This isn't some theory. This is reality. And this is a reality we're seeing play out in Canada as we speak. You have the autocratic leader in Canada who's resorted to genuinely authoritarian and tyrannical means to suppress a peaceful mass protest against the power elite there. Everything that we see happening up north, everything from the execution of emergency powers to the freezing of bank accounts, the seizure of children from parents, the destruction of livelihoods and small businesses, all of these things could happen here. So the question I ask myself in confronting all this is, what are they so afraid of? Who are they afraid of? You know the answer. It's simple. They're afraid of us. They're afraid of a free people. They're afraid of a free society. I've got to believe that Thomas Jefferson was thinking about these cowardly, fearful leaders when he said they prefer the calm of despotism to the boisterous sea of liberty. They're afraid of the freedom that empowers each and every one of us to seek the truth, to speak freely, to question their decisions and their authority. They're afraid of losing power, knowing full well the intent of our founders when they wrote in the Declaration of Independence that governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, and that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it's the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute a new government.
When a lady talks like that, that is absolutely winning my heart. And you know, it's good to know that people there that are going to be close to the seat of power or influence for at least the next 4 years with an extremely strong standing this time for the Republicans. It's things like that I take as the small seeds that other people are aware. And we have an opportunity to continue doing what we're doing, and that the message is getting out there. And there, you know, that definitely, I think, had an impact in driving the level of awareness. And, you know, you listen to these people that spoke and influenced and had impact. So many of them that, you know, weren't exactly household common names around the world before, but there were people that have stepped up, and not just taken the opportunity, but the responsibility of doing whatever it takes with whatever they had, wherever they were at, and taking the punches along the way for it. These people have made a difference. And this not just the echo chamber in control anymore. So the next clip I got here is another person that absolutely inspires me to no end. Victor David Hansen is a brilliant man. What he explains here, I think, I saw a post today saying, if the establishment was so corrupt, in so much control, how did they let Trump win if Trump wasn't part of the establishment? So that people are implying that the only reason Trump won was because he's part of the swamp. And I'll say it often, I believe that Trump has handlers too, but he absolutely, I think, genuinely loves America, which for Canada in our current situation, with all of the things Mr. Trudeau has done up here, there's going to be a bill and a price to pay for that. And Trump, I don't think, has any animosity towards the people, but I don't think he would blink twice about crushing Canada if Canada is a threat. But listen to this minute from Victor Davis Hanson.
We've never had a president impeached twice. He was impeached twice. We've never had a president who was tried as a private citizen. He was. We've never had a major presidential candidate where the opposing party tried to remove him from 16 state ballots, and that was aborted by the Supreme Court. We've never had a presidential candidate who has been the subject of 5 criminal and civil suits designed, I think you could say, to bankrupt him. And then in addition to these irregular things, we've never had a presidential candidate who was targeted for assassination on 2 occasions. I think both sides would agree they've never seen such a collapse in Secret Service performance, and that's happened on 2 occasions. I could go on, it's getting a little monotonous, but you can see that these are unusual events. We've never had
unusual events that we've never had before, and in spite of all of that and so much more, the people resoundingly were able to get get heard. They were able to make this beyond the grasp, and there's going to be some accountability. Listen to this little joyful bit. This. It's hubris.
Gentlemen, thank you. This ends the official handshake.
So there was a couple of things there with that. For the most part, all of those people, except Macron, is one of the few hangers on, but his days are almost done. Germany's government is collapsing. And Mr. Trudeau, now that Trump has won again, is scrambling and panicking because relations are not going to go so hot for Mr. Trudeau, given behavior like that. And one of the big things that I'm going to play. Yeah, I'm going to start with that. The big things that Trump won on was securing the border, right? Americans want to be safe again. They're seeing all of the invasion in their country, and it's easier to see down there because they have such a different culture and universe when it comes to the mainstream media. It's been very politicized and weaponized there, far more so than here in Canada. And so when you look at the scale of difference, everything that happens in Canada happens in the US and vice versa. Different rappers, different languages, sometimes slightly different narratives and programming, but it's all basically going on at the same time. Death by 1,000 cuts to both of our societies, but Canada's at about 10%. 100% of what's happening in the US is happening here at a scale of about 10%, because that's just the way it works. So Americans they realize they're being invaded, and they want security at the border. And up here in Canada, there's no such thing. That's a euphemism. It's like a fairy tale or a legend or a story about security in Canada's border. It's now run and managed by a CCP privately owned security firm, looks after Borders and Customs Canada. So I'm sure that's really going to impress Trump, given some of the things that he said about not wanting to work with people that worked with China, right? So this is going to be a big problem coming up in the next 4 years if that's the way Trump is taking a look at people that work with China. that's going to be a problem doing business with them. So with our security issues, our border is a joke, and even the so I'll just read this. This is from the BBC. So interesting enough, there isn't even a Canadian outlet talking about this. So I got to go to the BBC News and to bring Canadians news. Isn't that interesting when you want to talk about the mainstream media mercenaries? But a plan to secure the border. Trump's threat of mass deportations has raised questions in Canada about what it means for the shared northern border. Terry Givens, a professor of political science at the University of British Columbia, said even if that threat was not enacted, there was an issue of perception that could drive people to cross the Canadian border. In 2017, thousands of people began entering Canada via Roxham Road, an unofficial access point on the New York border, Quebec border, to seek asylum. Remember when it said Trudeau went out on the internet and said, yeah, everybody just come to Canada, doors wide open, come on in. He's lived up to that basically up until now, where he just recently announced so a couple of minor manipulations to policy, but it hasn't really changed much, right? But the reasons that drove them were diverse, but many cited both concerns of their ability to stay in the U.S. under the first Trump presidency and the belief that they would be welcomed in Canada. And there's no reason for them to think any different again this time around. So Canada and the U.S. have since closed a loophole in a border pact that allowed people to cross at unofficial border points, but the U.S. figures suggest people are still trying to make the attempt. So what I've done is I've got the report that link takes you to, and I'll add this link into the Substack for everybody tomorrow, so you can go and check out the numbers for yourself. Asked about the concern, Freeland said there was a plan. The Liberals got a plan. They got a plan in place, right? I do want to assure Canadians that we absolutely do recognize the importance of border security and control of the borders, he said. Wow. Can't believe she can even string a sentence, that full of lying and gaslighting together. But hey, there we are. Solving any political issue will take close collaboration between Canadian and U.S. officials. The 5,525-mile border is undefended, but it doesn't mean it's not watched to some degree. How do you actually enforce that border, said Julie Young, the Canada Research Chair in Critical Border Studies and an Associate Professor at the University of Lethbridge. And my concern is for the people whose lives will be endangered by how border policies are enforced. So like I said, I'll add that and this report into the Substack for tomorrow morning. But as you guys were mentioning about legacy media, this is something else that has absolutely been a result of the current direction, a sudden change in direction of the U.S. leadership with Mr. Trump, president-elect again. This is a bankruptcy moment for the legacy media. They shriek Nazi, fascist, traitor, insurrectionist at the top of their lungs for years. The country didn't believe it. Their spell is broken. Their credibility is destroyed. It's a new dawn. That's part of a clip from Alex Christoforu that I didn't want to play the whole video. I have got so much to go through here yet tonight, but these things will, as they're kind of whirling around here, will kind of clip in to some of that. So we know the legacy media has been lying and denying, and I had to bring you guys this little clip of the face of Zelensky. I posted this a couple of days ago on my X account. And I mentioned this was the day after the election. I said, the look you get when you see your bank closing and your card stopped working. You guys know that feeling? I'm pretty sure Zelensky's feeling that feeling. And how do I know that he's feeling that feeling? Because already today, on November 7th, President-elect Donald Trump's draft proposal to end Ukraine's war with Russia has been delivered, and the plan would require Ukraine to give up its NATO membership aspirations for at least 20 years. So that's part of the plan. Zelensky is talking peace, and Putin is welcome to talk about the end of the conflict in Ukraine. And not only there, wouldn't you know it? Look, same day. It took 12 hours after my father's election win for Hamas to call for peace. The real Donald Trump isn't even president yet, and he's already getting it done. So 48 hours, world peace. Kind of impressive, don't you say? Even if it is theater at this point, I think it's welcome. And we can't fall into this trap of, is there mountains and mountains of crap to clean up and storm damage and corruption and all of those things? Yes. That has been since the beginning of time and immemorial when it comes to organizing as nation states. So that's all part and parcel of it. And when you look at the grand scheme of things, in the history of governments, there's very few that have the potential of the possibility of being so good for humanity as the United States. But the further they have gotten away from their constitution, the further this has happened. So it's going to be very interesting. And yes, I see a comment there. He's a businessman, politician, and I believe that he loves the challenge, identify the problems, and get to work. And I think that's exactly, you'll love him or hate him, he's the right man for the job. Can he fix everything? No, he's not Jesus. Until we get Jesus back into our lives full time again in our country, that ain't going to happen. But he can do way more, obviously, than entire governments can. He can do more in a day than they can just by his mere presence, than they can through all of their scheming and deception and lies and propaganda and gobbledygook, right? And what does that mean for Canada? Again, Trump's a business guy. Canada has been on the hook for NATO spending for a long time, and even the Democrats are saying it's bullshit, Canada. You got to do better. And their foreign representative to Canada says Canada 2032 Trudeau's plan, again another liberal plan, isn't good enough. And she says, I know you can do better. Kelly Craft told CTV's Question Period host Bassy Kaplan in a panel interview alongside former Canadian ambassador to the U.S. David McNaughton. And this is going to be another one of those things. There's going to be excuses. Trudeau's going to be on the hook. The other nations that are picking up the tab for NATO are, they're not going to carry Canada's weight when it comes to that. Their governments are falling apart. They're becoming broke. So as far as timing of that, I think that's kind of fortunate for Trump coming back in to end the conflicts and perhaps put a leash back on NATO with an adult and a businessman in the room rather than chihuahuas and swamp zombies like the Macrons and the Trudeaus and that ilk, right? But at the end of the day, this is like doing a renovation. U.S. is going to be doing a lot of renovating in a very big space, and Canada is going to have no choice but to do some renovating on its junk too. And there's going to be a hell of a price to pay for that. And we're pretty much basically bankrupt, right? So this is going to hurt. This is going to hurt. People are there. There's going to be crazy things that are going to happen to Canada, and it's unfortunate that the people, all of us, have allowed it to get this bad that we're now going to have to pick up the tab on Trudeau's spending spree for the next however many generations. And this is one of the things that we knew was coming ultimately at the end of the day someday, simply because insanity is unsustainable, and these far left whacked out lunatics and swamp zombies have taken it too far. So next clip up is 3 minutes and 39 seconds. I don't know if you caught this clip. This is today, this morning, I believe. Trump's laid out 7 plans. Yeah, so this is a comment from Dom Luker, breaker of narratives. Not familiar, but developing it's perfect time to remind everyone of Trump's official plan to eradicate the deep state. It's about to get ugly in a beautiful way. That's what I mean. If he actually, in fact, does take on and drain the swamp and go after the deep state, this is going to be massively impactful on Canada. So let's listen to Trump's plan here, and we'll talk. We'll chew on it a little bit after.
My plan to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington corruption once and for all, and corruption it is. First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively. Second, we will clean out all of the corrupt actors in our national security and intelligence apparatus, and there are plenty of them. The departments and agencies that have been weaponized will be completely overhauled so that faceless bureaucrats will never again be able to target and persecute conservatives, Christians, or the left's political enemies, which they're doing now at a level that nobody can believe even possible. Third, we will totally reform FISA courts, which are so corrupt that the judges seemingly do not care when they are lied to in warrant applications. So many judges have seen so many applications that they know were wrong. At least they must have known. They do nothing about it. They're lied to. Fourth, to expose the hoaxes and abuses of power that have been tearing our country apart, we will establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to declassify and publish all documents on deep state spying, censorship, and corruption. There are plenty of them. Fifth, we will launch a major crackdown on government leakers who collude with the fake news to deliberately weave false narratives and to subvert our government and our democracy. When possible, we will press criminal charges. Sixth, we will make every inspector general's office independent and physically separated from the departments they oversee, so they do not become the protectors of the deep state. Seventh, I will ask Congress to establish an independent auditing system to continually monitor our intelligence agencies to ensure they are not spying on our citizens or running disinformation campaigns against the American people, or that they are not spying on someone's campaign like they spied on my campaign. Eighth, we will continue the effort launched by the Trump administration to move parts of the sprawling federal bureaucracy to new locations outside the Washington swamp. Just as I moved the Bureau of Land Management to Colorado, as many as 100,000 government positions could be moved out, and I mean immediately, of Washington to places filled with patriots who love America, and they really do love America. Ninth, I will work to ban federal bureaucrats from taking jobs at the companies they deal with and that they regulate. So they deal with these companies and they regulate these companies, and then they want to take jobs from these companies. Doesn't work that way. Such a public display cannot go on, and it's taking place all the time, like with Big Pharma. Finally, I will push a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on members of Congress. This is how I will shatter the deep state and restore government that is controlled by the people and for the people. Thank you very much.
So that's I want to chew on that for a few minutes here. Marianne says, I am way okay with that. I think we all knew that this was coming. Leonard says he better drain the swamp. I don't think we survive it otherwise. You know, it's you got to purge the poison before we can. You know, it's like that quote that I talk about quite often. We haven't delivered the justice, and there can be no future built on injustice, right? So we have no choice. So even if the handlers are, if this is just a correction, there's going to be there needs to be a lot of justice, and I believe that we're going to see quite a few people sacrificed to different counts of justice. People are going to throw each other under the bus. The season of the sacrificial political lamb is underway, and I 100% agree. Trudeau would look great, tarred and feathered, on the way to Cuba. I hate that you're not wrong. You're not wrong. He has more power than the mustache man at this point in time in history. Absolutely, I'll believe it when I see it. Trumpy, me too. Me too. Big point to be made there with that. This is a comment that I wanted to touch on from like, he knows what what he's going after, and that tells me that he knows what Trudeau has done. He knows what Trudeau's been up to, and here's my growing concern. If he actually does this, and he's mentioned that he's going to fix the US, go after the USMCA as well, because there is provisions for justice and accountability between the nation states of Canada, US, and Mexico within that. And that should he decide, or should we be corroborated through allegations of Trudeau intervening in the 2020 election, should that come out to be factual and truthful? Did Trudeau intervene in the theft of the 2020 election? Did America experience foreign interference in the election that they stole? I believe this is Trump's third term, personally. I've seen enough evidence to know that. What I haven't seen is, well, the corroborating evidence. We've got allegations and circumstantial evidence that, yes, Trudeau took part in taking that away and bad things against Trump. That could be something that would cause monumental impact. That could be justification for war. But it really, it could be, right? Old saucy. I was promised like Hitler. I know, right? It's these words have very few meanings anymore. 100% agree with release the J6ers. He's going to go after the DOJ that went after him. 100%. 100%. That's part of the something that has yet to be determined. What does Bobby Kennedy, meaning we're going to make America healthy again, mean? Because the if he's going after the DOJ and the corruption there, then, you know, does he take apart the how far does that corruption go? We know a lot, but we don't know all, and he's not been in a position, and I believe there has to be, again, there's going to be a time of justice, and Pfizer and Moderna and Anthony Fauci are not going to escape that completely, right? And that, again, comes back to Canada and Trudeau's involvement in all of this. Does he not get paid for every single COVID test on the planet? Right? So Lake says drain the swamp. Agreed. We gotta bleed it out no matter how much it hurts, because we can't just do anything beforehand. So swamps deep, needs to be clean worldwide, or they just move countries 100%. And we're seeing that. And we're going to talk about that here a little bit more too. Wow, so many comments here. Probably not. There's no way I'm going to be able to get to all of them. See if there's anything. This there's a lot of talk about that. The people have absolutely spoken. Now, whether they get what they spoke for, that remains to be seen. But I think that's the illusion of Trump, is that he's the only one that's ever delivered as promised, and we've seen it already here. He's not even in the Oval Office yet, and he's managed to put the freeze on two of the escalating world conflicts, right? So it's going to be interesting. Every once in a while, there's an outlier that, and even you look through the annals of Roman history, there was the odd one that, Roman history kind of ended up lasting for 600 years because they had a couple of good ones along the way, and they weren't born of the system. So, okay, so there's just no way I'll be able to catch up to all of those comments, but I'll play some of them. The next clip I've got here is a little bit longer, and I thought I'd kind of take about the halfway mark, a little bit of comedic relief. And I'm not really big for rubbing people's noses in stuff, but I wanted to at least take one opportunity to enjoy some of this squealing of the Marxists that were absolutely having a meltdown, because I think that's still better than the revolution that they were predicting. Let's enjoy a little bit of Aussie take on what what is happening with the left. All right, guys. So enjoy this clip, and then we'll get into a little bit more meat and potatoes.
Now it's time for Lefties Losing It. Let's have some fun looking at reactions to Donald Trump's extraordinary win. The red wave has cometh, and the lefties are, well, they're giving me too much content.
Sorry.
Look, it's fair to say she's not handling it well. As for this next lass, I'm not sure where she is today.
I swear to God, if you idiots elect that demented man, I will burn this whole place to the ground.
And this woman is too old to be this stupid, but sadly, leftism and TDS can leave the sufferer delirious, delusional, and dangerously stupid.
You voted for a racist, a rapist, a dictator. You voted for a bully, a bigot, and a narcissist. Even the Germans tried to warn us, but you didn't listen. You didn't listen to the historians, the psychologists, the educators, and the intellectuals. Of course not, because dictatorship 101 is to convince you to distrust the media, the educated, and to create an us versus them mentality.
It's always the dimmest folk who go on about educated experts. If you're wondering why these lefties are so triggered, so shocked by reality, so out of touch with their fellow Americans, well, it could be because they consume the type of media I'm about to show you now. Here are some of our favourite media leftists who were convinced that Donald Trump was toast, that Kamala was going to win and win easily.
In my humble view, lights out.
Please welcome back the next president of the United States.
I think it's going to be a blowout, actually. I don't think it's going to be a close race. I think there are going to be those Republicans that vote for Harris.
It'll be tied on election day, as always it will. The polls will be tied, and then he'll lose.
You call us trash? Oh, JD Vance, you just stepped up in a way that I've never seen in my political life, and I worked for Sarah Palin.
I would say take Harris over 270 electoral votes. Let these fools and these...
This comment is important. Bailey just got this from a friend. Thoughts: unless Trump stops nanotechnology, graphene from being put into our bodies without our knowledge, consent, and completing the biodigital convergence, the only way that can be stopped is if Bobby Kennedy does what he said he was going to do. So that's what is what we need to think about, that, because that's what they're doing. They're trying to replace our food with exactly that crap. So I think Bobby Kennedy Jr., love him or hate him, agree with everything or not, may just be the most important man on the planet right now for saving humanity as we know it.
Let's go market, do something, let them drive the betting line into a favorable place and then take advantage of it. That's what I would do. I think she's going to win.
You wrote Trump is toast. Do you stand behind that today?
Oh, even more so. I feel the same way that I felt a few weeks ago that Trump is toast.
And they're not taking the loss well. Here is Sunny Hostin of The View lashing out at white women without college degrees.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men actually voting more for him.
Those awful women and Latino men, how dare they think for themselves? By the way, the exit polls showed that the majority of married men, unmarried men, and married women voted for Trump. It was the unmarried women who backed Kamala. What was it that J.D. Vance said about that
Not
group?
Canada.
And Sonny also made some absurd claims about losing her civil rights. The desperation to be a victim is strong in this one.
I worry about my children's future, especially my daughter, who now has less rights than I have. And I remember my father telling me many, many years ago that I was the first person in his family to enjoy full civil rights. And now I have less civil rights than I had when he told me that. So again, I'm profoundly disturbed.
And the perpetually aggrieved ladies of The View also want greater censorship. They want to curb free speech on social media so a Democrat never loses again.
We could regulate social media because one of the biggest offenders is DC and Congress have not been able to do one thing in regard to the rogue corporations.
Not going to get any better with Elon Musk in the administration.
Now to MSNBC's Joy Reid, who is always having a normal one. Here she claims that Florida is a fascist state.
It's a pure Project 2025 in miniature in Florida. And that kind of extreme, sort of extremist right-wing fascist type government in Florida, does that make it a more attractive place?
Oh dear. And if you're in the habit of consuming media like that, then you may react like this when Donald Trump has a landslide victory.
We may not have rights tomorrow.
I'm scared of going to sleep. I might wake up on my
It's not just the women.
Anyone else having a meltdown? I don't know how to do this. Right now, I'm just not. I can't deal with it right now. I'm 48 years old and I have never experienced anything like this. I never thought I would in this country. I'm so stressed. I don't know how to handle this.
Oh, I'm so sad. But the best reaction goes to this jokester. This is superb work.
I'm literally shaking right now.
Oh, this guy cracks me up.
I'm a
but he's
trans
rude.
woman with a baby on the way. What am I going to do? Keep it?
Now, that was parody. I'm not sure if this next video is. I suspect it could be real. It's hard to tell nowadays.
I can't believe Trump's actually going to win this fucking thing. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm so up. God damn it.
And here is another white dude for Kamala. Or is it a work of satire?
What the hell? You cannot be serious. How did I wake up to this garbage as my president? That's right, garbage. I went to bed last night and she was ahead. I woke up to this freaking nightmare. Donald Trump? How? Does America have this many Nazi Hitler following pieces of trash?
Let's end lefties with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at AOC pretending she's some heroine in a Nazi film. Here she warns that we're about to enter a period of fascism. I'm so scared.
Let's say peers in history of mass movements of people that mobilize to protect one another in times of fascism and authoritarianism. And this is the era that we are poised to enter.
Joining me now is Batia Unga-Sargon, Newsweek Deputy Opinion Editor and author of Second Class, How the Elites Betrayed America's Working Men and Women. And Batia, you nailed it in your book. You explained the Trump phenomenon and the political realignment that sees The affluent lean increasingly left towards the Democrats, and working class people, aspirational Americans, the middle class, go to the right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We've seen a massive political realignment in America along class lines. So the biggest divider in America is not actually left versus right, as everybody saw on election night. It's the elites versus the working class. It's the credentialed, college-educated people who work in the knowledge industry and people who work with their hands for a living, people who don't have a degree. And what happened over the last 50 years was the Democrats created an economy that was an upward transfer of wealth from the working class, the hardest working Americans, into the pockets of the elites, the chattering class, the political class, the economists who were creating this policy. And as a result, working class Americans of all races stopped seeing themselves reflected in the Democratic Party. And when Trump showed up on the scene, it's really amazing, Rita. How did he get all these Democrats to vote for him? He simply lifted the Democrats' pro-labor, pro-working class economic agenda right off of them. It was the Democrats who used to believe we need a strong border to protect working class wages. It was the Democrats who used to be in favor of trade wars and tariffs to protect the labor of American workers. And Donald Trump showed up and said, wow, no one is representing 60% of Americans. Come home. And that is exactly what he did. And now we're seeing the fruits of that labor as he walks away with millions and millions and millions of voters who were Democrats 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and 5 years ago.
It's incredible, that political realignment, lifelong Democrats now switching to Trump, switching to the Republicans. And you talked about the divide is a class divide. It's not a race, gender, and all the other issues that the media is hyper-focused on. And the data from the exit polls shows that the majority of households whose incomes were under $100,000 for the household voted for Trump, and the majority of households with an income of over $100,000 voted for Harris. And the numbers almost perfect there. And do you see that changing? Do you see this political realignment sticking for the foreseeable future?
It all depends on where the parties go from here. So the GOP before Trump showed up was all neoliberalism. It was, free markets. And then there was, of course, the neoconservative piece of it. So it was, foreign wars and free markets, right? And social conservatism. None of those things resonate with working class Americans. They're anti-war, they hate free trade, and they're social moderates. They're not conservatives. They don't like abortion bans. Now, if the GOP after Trump goes right back to its version pre-Trump, the way the donor class is desperate for it to do, then of course they're going to lose all of these voters as well. If the Democratic Party learns the lesson here, which is don't call people racist for wanting to feed their children, right? If they go back to their embrace of strong borders, they could very easily win back a lot of these voters. The problem is that their donor class, the George Soroses of the world, want that open border. They really don't believe in nation states. They really don't believe in putting Americans first. And so you have this situation where the donor class of each side is very antithetical to the needs of working class Americans. And, we have one party that we have shown is willing to take on its elites, which is Donald Trump, who doesn't care what the elites think about him. And one side, unfortunately, that seems unwilling to take on its elites. So that's really what we're going to be looking for in the next 10 years.
I can't see the Democrats changing anytime soon. They, I think, are going to veer even more left. And it's early days, but they're not learning the lessons from this loss. They're just talking about race and gender again and blaming the American public for being too racist and too sexist to elect Harris. Now, the media did keep telling us that abortion was the key issue here, that women would deliver Kamala Harris a victory. How did so many in the media and how did so many pollsters get this election wrong?
So the polls have been historically inaccurate since Trump came on the scene, because, of course, if you're a Trump voter and you're used to hearing yourself called a Nazi by the experts, you're less willing to give them your time on a phone call with a pollster, right? And so they oversample for the college educated. They oversample for college educated women. The abortion problem here is this, Rita. You had the Democrats running on a made-up problem, which is that there was going to be a national abortion ban, which Donald Trump very clearly said he would veto because he believes in the right to an abortion for 12 to 15 weeks and for exceptions for the mother's health, rape, and incest. So it was a made-up fake problem that allowed rich, educated women to feel like the real oppressed class in this country. And
do you know why abortion is so important to the far-right radical left? Abortion isn't health care. It's not Medicare. It's not even about the right to choose. It's about depopulation. For every abortion, they have to bring in 2 migrants, at least 2 migrants, to replace that source to the future of the economy, and 1 to grow it. So for every abortion, and people think that abortion doesn't matter to them, they're overlooking that basic fact. For every abortion that happens to an innocent baby in our society, that justifies bringing at least 2 migrants in.
And Donald Trump was running on a real problem, which is that working class men cannot afford to feed their families anymore. And I think the Democrats thought that, with the Obamas berating men to show up for this fake problem for rich women, to protect the feelings of rich women, I think the left thought this would be a winning argument, when it turned out that it was working class women who showed up for their husbands and sons and for their dignity, because that was a real problem. And of course, working class men of all races who have just had it with a party that sneers at them, has contempt for them, has shipped their jobs overseas or imported 15 million people to do them here for less money. They're just sick of it. They're sick of being called racists for wanting to feed their family. Their grievances are real, and Donald Trump gave them that dignity back. And I think that this was a seismic shift, because it is undeniable what is happening now. The Democrats have become the party of leftist elites. They have thumbed their nose at labor. Their immense contempt for the working class, the backbone of this country, has been made so clear as they continue to blame voters for Donald Trump's dignity win, instead of saying he won because he gave dignity back to the American working class.
Betty Unga-Sargon, your insights are always appreciated on this.
And so that's, we're going to close that one off there, but wanted to, because some people still don't know that Kamala Harris, one of my things that I always despised about her was that when Planned Parenthood got busted for selling body parts, she didn't go after them. She went after the journalists that blew the whistle on it and threw them in jail. That's what Kamala did. She prosecuted the whistleblowers. And this comment from Marianne, my comment about abortion, justifying at least 2 migrants to come in, 100%, you're 100% on point with that. Made is also justification to replace the population. This is the math behind it. It's a bad issue in a society that recognizes this as a supremacy of God and professes to live by a Judeo-Christian value set. This is why the war on our society has made it a bad issue, because if we actually lived by our founding documents, it wouldn't be an issue. It would be stuck to rape and abuse and medical. That's where the abortion discussion should end. And it's not even about being pro-life. It's about blatant, cold-hearted murder. That baby, the most vulnerable in our society, are not given a choice, right? And that population crash, because of that, is exactly the justification for more migration. So this is all a part of the genocide and the population replacement of our nation, the treason, the coup, all of it, all of it. It's 100%. It's murder, 100% straight up murder. I like this show with the lefties losing it. Well, I wanted to play this because I kind of wanted to. There was another comment that came in here that a part of this was about human trafficking, and you nailed it. Looking for that comment, I just don't see see the comment. I wanted to pull that up because the human trafficking also utilizes. Okay, so it's like you guys were reading my mind when I was putting all of this together. You know, it used to be in the movies you'd hear running for Mexico, all the worst banditos, or they'd rob a bank, kill a guy, and run for Mexico. Why? Because there was lawlessness in Mexico. They could go and hide and live there and live on the run. Well, that's kind of what the situation has become here in Canada now. That everybody that is every people think it's funny when the celebrities and the lefties and the Taylor Swifts, and there's a whole long list of them, say, oh, I'm moving to Canada if Trump wins. So people think they're getting a whole bunch of Taylor Swifts, when no, they're not getting Taylor Swifts at all. You're going to be getting a lot of this, and you're going to be getting a lot of this MS-13, the worst of humanity that has been hiding in America when Trump starts closing those borders. All of those people that they evacuated out of Central America when they emptied their jails to get control of their countries back, where do you think they're going to go? Knock-on effect. Hello, Canada. We're going to see an explosion at the border again. And oh, wait a minute. Border control, immigration, Canada, I mean, we don't have any of that. They can walk and come and go and do as they please, and they'll even give them money. Remember, we talked about this just on Monday, did that really controversial show where this is literally Trudeau's wet dream. Trump's win is Trudeau's wet dream for implementing the Cloward Piven strategy and finishing off Canada with a whole bunch of more people that the rest of us that live here aren't necessarily, or hell, we're not even in the same universe of value identifying with the same values, morals, ethics. No, there isn't any of that. That's going to be going on. Let me get through some comments here before I get to the next segment. What do I got here? Oh, I was talking about the MS-13 as a reference, and I use that because Trump is all over MS-13 in a bad way and has for a long time. He knows how evil they are. I got this little clip, understanding what's coming. And Trudeau's definitely not ready. Our border is definitely not secure. It's controlled by Chinese private corporation. So it's kind of gates wide open while they manufacture the destabilization and destruction of population replacement, killing off of our babies and replacing us. We're talking a little bit more about what human trafficking and all that is right after this clip from Tucker.
Native-born black people. Legacy black gangs had run narcotics and dope trading. When the cartels moved into California, they said to all the black gangs, if you sell dope without our permission, we will cut your head off. And they meant that literally. So every black gang had to then find an alternative revenue stream or get their dope supply from the cartels, from Hispanic gangs, because all Hispanic gangs in California kind of operate as a extension of gangs above them, which are based in prison. Native-born black people.
So they're talking about George Soros's influence. One of the reasons why the Democrats failed is because they wouldn't let go, and the drug cartels. Well, who runs any of the drug cartels? It's not just the gangs in Mexico, right? Right? We know some other drug cartels that our leadership here in Canada have 100% sold out to, and are complicit in the mass murder and genocide of how many millions of people through the jab an mRNA manufactured depopulation bioweapon event on humanity in an innocent and unsuspecting society, right? So this I have something out of alignment here. Bear with me for just a second while I figure this out. All right. Okay, there we go. I'm not going to play this video because it's an hour long. I'll leave that for you guys to fill in the blanks. But this is from Ironclad, 179,000 subscribers, on the origin of how China became so tied to the Mexican cartels with former DEA chief Ray Donovan. So this is for deeper divers that are out there, but I am going to play this other clip because when you mention cartels, dangerous cartels, MS-13, fentanyl, and all of those drugs, this is what we think of. But then we're going to take a real peel back or unboxing of this, and I'm going to have to interrupt to make a couple of comparisons. But this, I want to set the context of this in that it is they were very careful about putting this together. Anybody that follows Wendy Bell or knows Oscar All Blue knows that the vast majority of people that were coming through the Darien Gap on these massive marches of thousands and thousands and thousands of people were not just Central Americans. But this is all that they basically look at in this. So keeping that in mind, this is going to be a little disturbing at some points, but it's pretty clean.
Let's talk about why so many migrants are getting stuck in Mexico.
Sorry. The reason I wanted to start with this one was if you heard Trump's acceptance speech, he said that one of the first things that he was going to do was he was going to call the new president of Mexico and have her do their job when it comes to keeping people from invading the U.S. from the States or the U.S. from Mexico. So Trump's talking about securing that border there. What's the discussion going to be like with Canada?
Y me siento como preso en este país, como preso aquí porque no hay como avanzar.
Pero lo más complicado para nosotros sigue siendo para mí México.
Every year, thousands of migrants attempt dangerous journeys through Central America and then Mexico to try to reach the U.S.
¿Cómo están? ¿De dónde son? Venezuela. ¿Cuál es el destino final de ustedes?
Estados Unidos.
Mexico's border with the U.S. stretches more than 3,000 kilometers.
Now, at the end of last year, illegal crossings reached an all-time high. And then suddenly we saw the biggest month-to-month drop in nearly 25 years. And the numbers kept going down. Now, the Biden-Harris administration has been taking a lot of the credit. Remember, it's an election year, and illegal immigration is a big issue among American voters. But there's also been a big crackdown on this side of the border by Mexican authorities. And it's all about trying to keep migrants from getting anywhere near the border.
So we've come to Mexico to find out what's happening and what it all means for migrants trying to make it to the U.S.
Por aquí no se puede cruzar.
100%.
Tiene que intentar arriba
This group of migrants from Honduras and Guatemala are trying to cross the Mexico-U.S. border. Karen and her baby are stuck on the Mexican side. Her husband and daughter have made it past the first layer of barbed wire to the American side, but they've been stopped by the Texas National Guard. Within hours, they're sent back to Mexico.
Me levantaron la malla y me sacaron por ahí mismo. Bueno, hasta esta piedra los tiraron.
Los tiraron hasta piedra al muchacho, la miró y no la miré, pues, y les decían que los iban a que me iban a quitar a mis hijos y a nosotros los iban a devolver por Honduras. Pero yo le dije, ¿por qué? Si son mis hijos, pues nosotros venimos por algo mejor. Uno de ellos habla español y los tíos, si nadie salen por la buena, nos vamos a por la mala, sí o sí.
Right now, for most migrants who cross the U.S. border illegally, there's no administrative process and they can't claim asylum. They can be immediately sent back to Mexico or deported to their home country. That's because of recent changes to the rules, which U.S. President Joe Biden tightened up even more with an executive order in June. But it's not just that migrants are facing tighter restrictions on the U.S. side. In Mexico, just getting to the border has become harder too. This is Mexico's southern border with Guatemala, and one of the main routes that migrants take to cross into Mexico, just a short trip on a raft. The riverbanks are patrolled by migration officials and Mexico's National Guard. Although while we were there, we didn't see anyone being stopped. We met a Guatemalan family who said they were running away from a gang. They asked us to hide their faces.
¿Y cuál es el destino final de ustedes?
Ir a Estados Unidos, si Dios lo permitiera. Pero ya pasaba una vez que nos regresaron. Le dijimos lo que nos está pasando, pero no les interesa nada.
¿De dónde vienen ustedes? Venezuela. ¿Todos?
Sí. Ahora, Voz Policía es una dictadura que no puedes hablar ni publicar ningún tipo de video porque es una persecución política. Todo esto se vino, ya era algo obvio y masivo antes de y después de las elecciones, ahora es más peligroso.
¿Qué han escuchado de cómo es la ruta de ahora en adelante?
Es difícil porque sabemos en qué país estamos, sabemos cómo está la situación, entonces le ponemos a los niños también, entonces toca ir con cuidado. Eso sí, con cuidado.
From the river, it all becomes a question of how migrants can move north. They face all sorts of obstacles, like immigration checkpoints and exposure to gangs and organized crime. Some migrants choose to pay smugglers to take them as far as possible. But for many others, the south of Mexico is where the bureaucracy starts, in cities like Tapachula.
Estamos a 30 kilómetros de la frontera con Guatemala, en la principal ruta migratoria del continente americano, en donde pasan más o menos entre el 70 y el 80% de las personas que buscan llegar a Estados Unidos por vía terrestre. La refieren como una ciudad cárcel, como una ciudad de detención a cielo abierto, por la gran cantidad de restricciones burocráticas que las personas tienen que enfrentar y el costo que tienen que pagar para poder avanzar.
The main plaza in Tapachula is full of new arrivals from countries like Venezuela, Honduras, and Haiti. Because of the new restrictions on the U.S. border, the only way for most people to get into the U.S. and claim asylum.
Although they're talking about specifically one border, right after this, I'm going to introduce you guys to the biggest human trafficking organization on the planet, bar none, and connect some of those dots. A couple of points that were made here that I wanted to address. You know, they said in there how far take them as hiring gangs and criminals to take them as far as they could go. How far can they go? They can go all the way to Canada, and that's where they're going to be going to. All of those people that they illegally swung into the United States that are going to be facing deportation, all 100 million of them? How many of them are going to be heading north under the open border societies and all of them? We're going to dig into a lot of that. So I wanted you guys to make sure you don't get caught up on the Latin flavor of what they're trying to portray here in this. And then we'll talk about not just the coyotes, but the ones at the top of the food chain when it comes to the coyotes that abuse these people and more of that. So we're gonna dive into the dark side of that here right after this. So
is by getting an appointment at the border. And to start that whole process, they have to rely on an app called CBP1.
A few months ago, the U.S. made that app accessible to migrants here in the south of Mexico. That's new, and it's a big reason why so many migrants are choosing to wait here instead of just heading north.
But it can be a long wait. There's a limited number of appointments, 1,450 per day.
Here, you just wait for 10 o'clock, CBP1.
You're checking the app all the time?
Yes, every day is like this.
With the CBP1 application, lots of people don't have access to the technology. They don't have high-speed internet. There are lots of glitches. it's only in 3 languages. There is so much backlog. That means that people are waiting 3 months, 6 months.
With so many migrants waiting around and more arriving to Mexico every day, migrant shelters in Tapachula are overflowing. This one has space for about 900 people, but they've taken in around 300 more. People are sleeping in the dining room and in the corridors.
Llegamos como a las 3 de la tarde. Pues ya no había suficiente espacio en el albergue, nos quedamos un rato afuera, pero el señor pues salió, nos dijo que podíamos ingresar.
¿Y cuál es el plan que tienen ustedes?
Pues el plan inicial de nosotros es llegar a Estados Unidos, ¿sí? Pedir una cita y pues con la información que pronto.
In Tapachula, there's this sense that everyone's feeling stuck. These migrants who do have a CBP-1 appointment have queued up overnight in the rain outside an immigration office because they need an additional document to travel to the U.S. border.
No ha venido nadie de inmigración aquí a dar información.
Ellos no dan la información que uno necesita. Dicen, no sé, no vengo mañana, vengo pasado.
For migrants who decide to take their chances and travel north anyway, without a CBP-1 appointment, well, that journey's become harder and riskier. Many people used to rely on something called a humanitarian